Are you seriously going to eat, you fat blibbity blabbity blob? I mean, some of you might be like,
Continual.
why would I want to start this?
Sensitive. She's sensitive.
You are listening to the Tammy Talks Unscripted Healing Podcast, where we share stories that are, you guessed it, unscripted.
That's the thing, this journey doesn't stop.
It doesn't really
right?
end. We have a general sense of the topic each episode, but really the whole point is just to show up and be authentic and let our inner child speak its truth. And I have continued to work through that story of constantly hearing, well, we don't want, got a hot dog on our hands. Yeah, guess what, Mr. Sabatsky, you do. So I'm so excited that you are here, and it is my hope that you hear yourself somewhere in the story so that way you can feel seen and heard as well. So let's start talking. Welcome to the Tammy Talks Unscripted Healing Podcast. If you are joining me back, thank you for being a returning listener and for continuing to bring your presence, your energy, and your inner child to hang out with me each and every week. Little Tam and I appreciate it more than you know. And if you are a first-time listener, you picked a good time to dive in and get started because today's episode is, whoa. Like, whoa, I knew just knowing this person that it was going to be an epic episode, but I wasn't even fully prepared for what he shared and the impact that this man has. So I cannot wait to get to that. And I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet because it was another long episode. Because again, I can't rush this stuff. This story needs to be heard and needs to get out there. And so I'm grateful that you are all carving out time and space in your lives to really receive these stories and these messages. But first, I wanted to thank all of you who listened to last week's episode with Colleen and have just sent her and that sweet baby boy Riker so much love and letting her know how much her story truly touched your heart. That's why I am hosting this podcast, is to get these stories out there, because I know that everyone has a story for a reason, and it is meant to unlock something within you to help you start feeling again, to help you validate your story, to help you start healing, whatever it is. Like, that's why I'm here and providing this space for these amazing, beautiful souls to be able to share their story. So thank you for helping her feel so much love and support throughout her healing journey. And yeah, she's going to be doing some amazing work out there, which leads me to my guest for today, Mr. Korbey White. I wanted to throw this into the episode because we already recorded it. And like I said, it's epic. But I really wanted to drop the line. I think it's from Anchorman. I'm kind of a big deal, because Korbey you would never know how big of a deal this guy is, because he's so humble. He's so kind. He is just an incredible, incredible human. And so, but when you hear his story and where he started, oh my goodness, like there was no other option for the title of this episode besides turning pain into purpose, because that is what this man has done. And the level of pain he has endured throughout his entire life, literally before he was even born, is something else. And there's no denying that he was absolutely given that story to be able to do the work that he's doing now. So I will zip it because I will let him tell the story, because he did an amazing job and I'm so grateful. And so thank you all for listening and for receiving Korbey and all of his amazing gifts. Welcome back. I have my amazing guest with me, Mr. Korbey White, and holy man, I have got quite the list of things to share about what this man has all done and what he's involved in. But give you a little background. So Korbey and I met at the gym over 3 years ago now.
Yeah. It was during the pandemic.
It was.
Yeah.
Well, it was so funny because we were all wearing masks, obviously. So it was just a weird time.
Yes.
So people weren't really talking or making eye contact.
Uh-huh.
And I'll never forget. And I actually think I still have the video. It was one of my friends came just to check it out and play flip tires with us and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I remember her jumping over you guys or around you when you were doing your core workout. And ever since then, it was just the ice broke, and it was these guys are the coolest people in the world. And so Korbey, I refer to him as you feel like my big brother. That's just kind of how it's always felt. And I was just messaging him yesterday. I'm I don't know how you always knew, but you always know. when like I needed a hug or just extra encouragement, I didn't need to say anything. And so it just felt like you find your soul family, and you have like absolutely felt like that for me. And so when I started this podcast, I was like, I have this dude on here. Joking him when I call him dude, because once I read all of this, you guys, you're gonna be like, you can't call him dude. But that's just the kind of guy you are. And so you just have such an amazing presence about you and energy about you. And so the work that you're doing is so inspiring. But the reason I wanted to have you on here is because of your story and how you have turned so much pain into purpose.
Yes.
And
Yes.
yeah. So I'm going to read this.
Okay.
So it'll be about 10 minutes before I get through this. So Korbey is the health program manager for the state of Wisconsin, headquartered at the State Department of Employee Trust Funds. He holds a bachelor's degree in international business and African American studies from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and a diversity and equity inclusion certificate from Cornell University. He is Lean Sigma 6 certified. And Korbey serves on so many things. So many things. I don't know how you have time for anything, but he does make time for the gym every single morning. So yes, that's amazing. But Korbey serves on the Verona Area School District Board of Education, the board of Dane County Immunization Coalition, a board member of the Sherman Phoenix Foundation, a board member of the African American Opioid Coalition, and is a board member of the 100 Black Men of Madison, where he serves as a wellness committee chair. Korbey is also a proud member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, the Rotary Club of Madison, and the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Korbey is also the owner and CEO of See, Hear, Learn, LLC, where he teaches businesses all types of how to organically create and implement employee resources. Mm-hmm. It's amazing.
Yes.
Amazing. And so, but again, it's like, it's where you've come from. And it's just been so amazing to hear these little bits and pieces of your life throughout our friendship. Mm-hmm. And just made me appreciate and value so much more. I'm like, whoa.
There's another thing that I just found out a couple days ago. I am also now newly appointed to the Madison College Board of Trustees.
Woo!
So that's another one.
That's another one.
Yes. Another one. And my talent works. Yes.
It's incredible. Like I said, I don't know how you have time for it, but like, it's just, your purpose is so big that obviously you're right where you need to be and doing the things that you need to do.
Yes.
But I was joking to him, like, this is going to be your least professional meeting of your week, or maybe month or life. You were just meeting with mayors this weekend. You've speaking in different countries. And I just said speaking. That's not actually.
It's a word now.
But just, again, it's incredible the impact that you're having. And so I would love for you to just,
yes,
we were going to do this totally unscripted. And I literally said, how comfortable are you sharing, stuff of your childhood, how you really have healed to get to this place? Mm-hmm. That's literally all we talked about with this episode. So,
yes. So I just want to start back to when I first met you. When we first met you guys, my workout partner, Steve.
Yeah.
We were working out every day during the pandemic. We had our mask on and we were like, who are these women that are just going at it harder than we are? And so we nicknamed you the Power Rangers. So every time we would come in, we'd be like, we're Power Rangers. And sometimes when we didn't want to do it, we looked to you, and that was motivation and inspiration to go after it. So as much as you feel like we inspire you, you inspire us.
That's awesome. I love that. Shout out to Karina, my girl.
Yes, Karina.
Yeah.
Back. Yes.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Pull up, queen.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. But I love that environment for that reason, because everyone's going through something, and and that's what I love about, especially that morning crew, and just the respect that everyone has. And like I said, you've just always kind of known when someone might need a little extra encouragement.
Absolutely. I've had people I didn't know at all stop me at the gym. I'll never forget this. I was about to do cleans, and this was back in 2020, and I was by myself. Steve was out of town, and this guy was walking on the track at the Princeton Club. Never seen him, never met him in my life. He stopped and he said, "You have such a positive aura about you."
Yeah.
And he said, "I just want to stop and tell you that I needed that." And I said, "Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm just working out, just being me. You okay? You all right?" And he had stage 3 cancer. And I gave him the biggest hug. And he said, he told me, "I just want you to keep doing what you, because I can feel it." And I was, I didn't know what to say. I'm speechless now because this guy, I've never seen him ever. And I had to take a breath because the title of your podcast says it all: pain into purpose. And my life has been filled with so much pain that I do all of these things that you read off so that no one else, if I can help it, no one else has to go through it, or that they're aware at least of what happened with me so they can make decisions based on that.
Yeah.
But the children, I don't want them to feel anything I felt during my childhood. And I can share a little bit of that.
Yeah. Please.
So, and you know a lot of this because of the song I made. I used to be a rapper in my past life.
Song.
Yes, and it's called Mama's Song, and I made it for her back when I was in college, or right after I graduated from college, because I wanted her to know that I saw her and still see her. Yes, she's still alive, but I wanted her to know that everything, all the sacrifices she made for me and my 2 sisters, I'm the youngest of 3, did not go in vain, and that we love her for it. And even when my mom was pregnant with me, that's when the trauma for me started. Living in Los Angeles, grew up there. At that time, my mom's pregnant with me, and 2 guys tried to break in on her right after my father had just left to go to work. And my mom's panicking because she's pregnant with me.
Yeah.
And she finds my dad's gun. And the guy, she's screaming at them, "I'm pregnant. Stop, don't come in." And they break the door down, and my mom fires. And she ended up fatally injuring one and permanently paralyzing the other. So my mom, the trauma that she obviously is dealing with, but I'm in her belly at that point. So I'm dealing with it too.
Yeah. Percent.
And that was the start of the trauma. Growing up where I grew up, there were a lot of gangs, tons of drug dealing. Anything you can name was going on at that time, and still going on now, unfortunately. And as a child, I lost a lot of friends, family members due to violence. And my dad was very abusive to my mother, physically and mentally, emotionally, everything you can name. And my mom finally got the divorce because I'll never forget. I was 7, 8 years old, and I woke up and all I could hear was him yelling and my mom screaming. And he was being physically abusive. So I found his gun and I fired, and he ran out the house. And my mom said, "This is it. I got to get my kids out of this situation." And she divorced him at that point. And my dad said those words to me that began the motivational process for me. We're at the courthouse. This is their last hearing of the divorce. My dad said to my mom in front of me, "If you divorce me, I divorce the kids too." And I never seen them again at that point.
Wow. That does something to a kid.
Oh yeah. It hurt. It hurt me so bad, but it also motivated me.
Oh yeah.
Because I always promised myself I would never be like him.
Well, and that's again, when you think about turning this pain into purpose, like right there, like that is a defining moment in your life, because how many kids go the other way and get lost in that? And to think, and the fact that you pointed out that the trauma started in the woman, and that's something that people don't even think about, is the stress that maybe their parents were going through at the time, and how we feel all of that. Like everything is energy, and you're feeling that, you're taking on that stress. And so like your whole life, like that was the foundation. And so when you think about creating these like foundations of safety, like you never even came into the world with a sense of peace and calm and safety. And like,
No.
that started before you even got here. And so you have, from that moment on in the courthouse, I got to create this for me, myself, and that. Wow.
Yes. So I won't forget the events immediately after that. So now my mom is forced to take care of me and my two sisters by herself. And the first thing that happened is we were homeless. And we lived everywhere you could imagine. My parents are from Mississippi, and so we lived there for a little bit. I remember staying with an aunt in Chicago for a little bit, with relatives in Milwaukee for a little bit, and back to LA. I mean, this is all going on as I'm developing as a child. But the one thing that remained constant was grief, death, and fighting everywhere I went. That's all I saw. That's all I grew up around. And I can remember thinking as a child that the rest of the world must be this way, because this is the world I see.
Yeah.
And I remember going to school. The first friend I lost, Jason was his name. I won't say his last name. This is how I learned not to skip school. He skipped school, and the next day we didn't see him. And all the kids were like, "Where's Jason?" You know, we're in third grade. All of a sudden, the principal calls us all into the gymnasium and lets us know he was murdered. He was abducted, sodomized, and thrown into the ocean.
Third grade?
Third grade. That was the first friend I lost, and I'll never forget him to this day.
Oh my gosh. I'll never forget that. Third grade.
That taught me, I learned from that. That was my reference. Well, I'm never skipping school, because if I do, I'm going to die. That's what I thought from that as third grade.
Like hardcore conditioning right there, like life-saving. And that's what ego will tell you, is like, no, you have to do this in order to survive. And that's when you start picking up these survival mechanisms.
Exactly.
For you, that was real.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Little did I know at that time it wouldn't end. Almost every year, it was somebody close to me who was murdered, not natural causes. So as a kid, I always thought, I'm probably, if I'm lucky, I'll make it to 16, 17, and then somebody will kill me for some reason. That's what I always thought as a child. And then my sisters are brilliant. I mean, they could read something, take a whole book, read it one time, and be able to recite everything in detail. That I know, right? And so they are incredibly just brilliant women. And the middle child, my sister Deidre, she is 5 years older than me. Crystal, my oldest sister, our oldest sister, is 7 years older than me. So naturally, because of that age, I was closer to Deidre than Crystal. And so she became my role model. I watched her athletically, she's the best athlete in the family, the fastest.
It's surprising, because you're an amazing athlete.
Yes. I mean, I played football, but if she could have played football, she would have been better than me. She was faster, stronger, and just smarter. So she became my role model. So I tried to imitate everything she did. Sounds good, except I found myself at school running into, well, your sister could do that. Or your sister was great at that, but she was the example. She was the role model. My mom was the role model for my work ethic. When you read all this stuff and how I do it, my mom worked 3 jobs. I never saw my mother as a kid because she was working.
Right.
I understood that. I remember in high school feeling so sad because all the other kids had their parents there, their mom, their dad, mom and dad at every single game that they played, and I didn't. I was sad, but I knew, I
Yeah.
understood. We have to have money to be able to work
Right.
or live.
Yeah.
And so that used to make me sad. There's a couple things I'm gonna go back to that as a kid that happened that really shaped and molded the man that you see today. And one major defining moment, I moved out of the house when I was 15.
Wow.
And it was because I'm sorry, and stop me if I'm
Like,
I played football in high school and found out I was pretty good at it.
yeah.
And I worked as a dietary aide at a nursing home. It was terrible. The worst job. Don't do it. It is.
So much training to be a dietitian. I had to go through that. So I know.
Oh my God. And I'm in high school and I'm like, it's good money. So literally my process was dietary aid, school, football practice, recycle. I would do that every day. And one day, because of the trauma my mom and my sisters felt from my father, I walk in the house and I'll never forget this. They're talking about men, and I can hear them as I'm walking through the door. They are just man hating because of the trauma
Right.
that they went through.
Yeah.
But this is 15-year-old Korbey, so I don't understand that. I walk in the door and my mom, here comes one now. And I'm like, what did I do? I just walked in and they're just going after me. And at that moment, Tammy, I packed up all of my stuff and I left. And they're just like, where are you going? I didn't say a word. I just left. Went, found a slumlord that didn't care what age you were, as long as you had the money to pay the rent. And that's what I did. I would not recommend this for any kid. It was the worst time of my life. Going to school, working at 15, trying to learn how to balance and budget.
Yeah.
And, essentially I was an adult at 15.
Yeah.
And it was terrible. It was horrible. So I learned so much from that experience. I learned not to do that. I wouldn't tell any child. Yes. But it also made me grow up quicker than my peers. And it prepared me for college. So going to college, I always knew I wanted to go, but never thought I would. I didn't think I'd live long enough to go to college.
Which is like mind blowing that is even a thought. Most people are like, I don't know if I can afford it. You
Mhm.
just don't even know if you're going to live.
Yes.
Like that's how real that was for you.
Yep. I can remember
Ooh.
at 11, the teacher going around the classroom and asking every child what did they want to be when they grow up. And most kids, it was fireman, police officer, football player, basketball player, something. And when she got to me, I said alive. And she called my mother. She was like, is there something we need to know? Mom's like, no, we live here. And so that's the attitude in South Central LA, that it's survival.
Yeah.
I grew up in Watts and we have an acronym for the word Watts. We are taught to survive.
Wow. My daughter's going to be 11. And I can't even imagine that being her reality, where that's an actual fear or a statement she would make.
Yes.
Wow.
And it's amazing now when I talk to these kids in the high school, and we'll get to that.
Yeah.
They ignore me until I tell them where I'm from. And then they're like,
Yeah.
then they listen, because now I can relate to what they're dealing with, or,
Yeah.
vice versa.
Well, and I think that's why I wanted to have you on here. And then the reason that I have this podcast and I've shared my story too is it's in those vulnerable moments where people can connect with you
Yes.
and like, oh, this dude gets it. Oh, she gets it.
Uh-huh.
If I never talked about emotional binge eating, like I wouldn't be able to connect with people that are really struggling with that. If I just put on this perfect persona that I do everything perfect and all that stuff, like I'm not helping anyone that way. And so it's about getting real and vulnerable. And so it's just encouraging more and more people, like, own your story, because there is a gift in that for you. And it could bless someone else. It could give someone else hope. And that's what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, because of my sister, both sisters, one went to UCLA, the other one went to USC. I thought maybe I can go to college. But unlike them, I'm not living at home anymore. So I got to do this myself. And I didn't know how to.
right.
So I go to the guidance counselor. Turns out his daughter applied to the University of Wisconsin. And at that time, and it's still true to this day, many of the college campuses within UW were ranked number 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the country. I wanted to go to the business school. At that time, it was ranked number 1 in the country. My guidance counselor did what everybody had told me my whole life as a kid. I wouldn't make it.
Oh,
So I think you and I had this conversation before. A lot of people need positive reinforcement. I'm the complete opposite.
yeah. Tell me I can't do something.
You tell me I can't do it,
Get a-
that's when I'm gonna.
I'll just tell her she can't do it. And oh,
If you walk by us, you'll hear us say it. Pastor Marcus Allen said it this morning when I was feeling weak and I thought I couldn't do this military press. It's from Kendrick Lamar's newest song, Not Like Us, where he says, sometimes you got to pop out.
yeah.
Pastor said it this morning. Pop out, Korbey. And that's where I operate from. When you
Yeah.
tell me I can't, I have to show you I can. And when he did that, it lit the fuse. So now I'm reading things. How do you apply for college? And then football, I talked to my coach. He's sending my tapes to UW, and it all worked out. Before I knew it, UW sent me the letter and was like,
Wow.
we want you. We would love to have you. Like, okay, how am I going to get to Wisconsin? So looking at travel and buses, don't ever take a bus from that long a distance, but you will see some strange things that'll make you
Watching them.
get people watching. Yes. And when I got here, I didn't know what to do except talk to Barry Alvarez, who was the coach at the time. Very wonderful man. Absolutely wonderful. Just a guide through life.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what to do to register and all that. And I'm a Muslim. I'm a huge believer in God. This gentleman walks up to me. I'll never forget this, Tammy. He drove up next to me, next to Helen C. White Library on campus. Hey, get in the car. And I'm like, in my neighborhood, when that happens, you don't come back. I'm Dean Jeffry Thomas, get in the back. And he took me to take my placement exams. To this day, I'm like, how did he know that? He ended up being the center reason I made it through college. Dean Jeffry Thompson, if you're watching, you know I love you. He was from Brooklyn, New York, and went through almost the same situation I had gone through years before. He's way older than me, but he knew, and we just clicked, and he guided me through college. God did that, put him in my life. And through him, I learned that I can. He was the guy who always stayed on me, telling me I could. From there in college, I end up becoming roommates with my best man at my wedding, who they ran track at UW. So we're all athletes, but one of them came from a similar background in Chicago. The other one was the benefactor, or end result of a similar situation in Milwaukee. And we just clicked together. We became our family, our support group. And that's what got me through college.
Wow. It's so amazing. And I've talked on this podcast so many times about how people are truly guided. And just this last week's episode with Colleen and her story. And when you really almost kind of like step outside of your life, you can start to see like everyone had a role. And it was almost like even that counselor,
Yes.
like his role was like, you know what, you're going to go in and you're going to tell this kid he can do it. Like that's, I mean, that was a gift in itself and like kind of one of those painful packages, but you took that as fuel. And it was just, it's so amazing. And then just all these people that are placed in your life. And if we could all just trust that, like when you're open to receiving the people, the resources, it starts to come together for you. But I think sometimes we get caught in these stories or in our circumstances, and it's hard to see outside of that.
Yes.
And you just were always like, I'm going forward. This is not my story.
Absolutely. I knew I did not want to die on those streets. I'm going to go back to that because I had an older cousin who was my father figure during those middle school and high school years. And my cousin Marvin, and he was 5 years older than me. And he was one of the most gifted athletes, but he was heavy into the streets. And he had me thinking that to be a man was to be a gangster. And I knew I didn't have that in my heart, but that was the image I was portraying on the streets to survive.
You're right.
And I'll never forget the phone call in 2011. I'm at work at the state building, and I knew when I saw it was my mother calling that this can't be good because she knows I'm at work. So when she calls at work, it's major. To give you a point of reference, the only other time she called me at work was 9/11, letting me know what happened because my sister was in one of the towers.
Oh my gosh.
And we were freaking out because we couldn't get a hold of her. And then finally, after about 2 hours, she contacts us. I'm okay, but this is like nothing I've ever seen in my life. I lost coworkers. So it was more trauma, right? So in 2011, my mom calls and lets me know my cousin Marvin had been killed. He got into an argument with some guy pulled out a gun, shot him in the head and killed him. And at work, I just broke down because for all practical purposes, this was my father figure. And I miss him every day. I see him every day. I feel him every day. And my mom said to me, you knew that's how that was going to end up. And in my heart, I did because that's what he felt a man was. And I knew it wasn't.
Well, and again, when we think about how our ego tries to protect us. And so his ego said, hey, in order to survive, like, this is what you got to do.
Yes.
And thank goodness, like you had some sort of center where even though your ego, you could feel that pull to that life because that's what you were seeing, what you were modeled. Like there was some sort of anchor that's like, no. But yeah, I mean, our ego will go to the worst extremes.
Yes.
Literally just to protect little Korbey, little Tammy.
Yes.
And it ends up putting us in really, really harmful and sometimes deadly situations. And I think that's why when you're speaking to students now, it can kind of help them see that. Like, that's not really who you are, but you cannot let your ego create such a story that you can't see out of it and know that this isn't actually who you are.
Exactly. And I've seen so much death. I will never forget the first person I saw that got killed in front of me. I was probably 13. My cousin Marvin entered us into a rap competition, and it was all adults, and we were kids, and we tried out for the show, and the judges looked at each other. We want them on because we were really good, and we rapped about the stuff we were seeing growing up in our neighborhood.
Wow.
And
kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what they said. They were
Yeah.
like, these are kids telling us
Yeah.
about what they're seeing growing up in this neighborhood. And right after the show, some guys were just shooting at each other. And I watched a young woman get hit right in front of me. And I was like, wow. And so trauma, I don't say that to glorify it or make anybody feel some type of way. I just want to get the point across that trauma has been the foundation of my life. But like you said, turning it into purpose, into something where I live through that and hope that no one else has to go through that.
And that if we were given the playbook of Korbey, you maybe be able to see that, like, I'm sorry you have to go through all of this, but there is a bigger purpose in all of this for you.
Yes.
And thank goodness you have went and found that gift. Thank goodness, because again, you are literally helping save lives.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So fast forward to now, if you want me to. And like you just said, my 9 to 5 is the health program manager for the state of Wisconsin. And what that means is I manage all of the health plans that offer coverage in the entire state, all 11 of them. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of policy. It's a lot of math. It's a lot of relationship building.
Yeah, which you're a pro at.
The reason I absolutely love what I do is we address social determinants of health, people who don't have access, whether it be in urban areas or rural central parts of Wisconsin up north, where you have people using the emergency room for primary care because they don't have anything out there.
Yeah.
We address that. And I love that part of my job. And with that, I'm able to tap into other inequities, food insecurities, things of that nature. I also help negotiate the premium costs. So I'm fighting for the member, for our subscribers daily. And I love that part of my job. What it also did with regards to relationship building, I developed a relationship with all of our health plans. So outside of that, outside of work, I'm able to use my connections with the health plans to address the same situations without having to go through bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And what I found is our health plans want to do this, and they do it.
Yeah. Wow.
One of the guys I work out with owns, to me, I'm biased, the best barbershop in Madison, definitely the most prominent, JP Hair Design.
That's awesome.
He has a back to school event that he does every year where he organizes all of the barbers in Madison. They set up at the Alliance Center. They give free haircuts for a whole day.
Bad.
It has turned into, now we have our school districts involved giving out school supplies.
Wow.
I sit on the board at Verona. We participate. We bring school supplies in for kids. Last year, I approached JP and I said, wouldn't it be cool if we could do something medically like vaccines? And he said, what are you thinking? You thinking COVID? I said, vaccines for kids to go back to school. We have them all there. Measles, mumps, whatever the case may be, chicken pox.
Yeah.
We have it set up there. He said, that would be incredible. On the Dane County Immunization Coalition Board, we talked to one of our major health systems. They said, absolutely.
Wow.
And so last year was the one-stop shop. You get your haircut, school supplies, vaccines. Fleet Feet found out about it and said, how can we get involved? And they offered gift cards for free, for shoes, for every kid who got vaccinated. We vaccinated 155 kids.
Oh my gosh.
That was the first year last year.
Wow.
And we're doing it again this year, August 25th.
August 25th. Sign me up. How can I help? I'll be a volunteer.
Yes, we love volunteers. 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Alliance Center. We'll be right back there.
Wow.
But that's just one example of how these connections, these community connections are all happening. And as a board member at Verona, I have really been able to talk to these kids, and we have some kids going through some trauma that's very similar. Can I give an example?
Yeah.
I met with one student, and his mom, single parent with his mom, she broke her leg back in November. And she's the breadwinner for the house. So if mom doesn't work, there's no money coming in.
Right.
He picked up 2 jobs and is going to school. And I met with him, and I was just smiling. And he said, Mr. White, why are you smiling? I said, you remind me so much of me when I was 15. I told him everything I just told you. And he was like, so you understand me? I said, yes. And I said, what can I do to help you? And guess what this kid said to me? He said, the only thing I need you to do is text me or call me and tell me to keep going. That's all he wanted. He said he's never had a man in his life tell him that he could do it. And I was like, now you really remind me of me.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot of things I could have been, that I went through that could have been avoided had a man been there to tell me no or yes, or give me some sort of direction.
Right.
But I had to learn that on my own.
Oh, I just got super emotional there because, I mean, this goes back to all the inner child work is every child just wants to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel loved, accepted, valued, all of that stuff. And so in that moment, like you saw him.
Yes.
You saw him as like, I just met this dude, but I know that he is like, that is a lasting impact that could have changed or probably has changed the course of his life in just that one moment of truly seeing someone in their story. And what a beautiful way to reparent little Korbey.
Yes.
Like that's how you reparent is you are able to not only give someone else that chance and like I reparent myself through my kids all the time, but it's also like making sure I'm giving that back in the way that you're like allowing yourself to feel that impact. Like, wow, that's exactly what I needed. And so you're giving that back to your younger self too. But that's the most invaluable gift is to help someone feel seen. Like that will change a kid's life.
Absolutely. There's so many examples. So please tell me to stop.
Like this is why I want is for people to hear these stories because it's real.
Yes.
Everybody has a story. And so, and I've done other podcasts on projections and stuff because everyone has their story. And if we're not in that space where we're actively healing it, we'll project it onto others. But when you're giving someone a safe space to be able to open up and share, we can stop projecting because we can start to feel safe in our story and feel like maybe there is a purpose in this for me. And for that kid to see what you have done, whoa, you just opened up a whole new world for him that maybe he wasn't able to see beyond.
Exactly.
Oh,
To your point, he wants to go to college. He said, Mr. White, I can't go to college. I said, why not? He said, I got to take care of the family. I can't leave here to be on UW's campus. And I said, well, have you looked into Madison College? And he said, no. And I showed him, went to the website. He's going to be attending Madison College next year. So
again, reparenting. Like I didn't have that, like someone to walk me through.
yes.
And you go,
And just so many examples. The one that really touched me, do you remember, I want to say it was last year or the year before, it was recent. There was a young man killed in front of Dane County Jail when he was released.
yes.
I met his son, who's the strongest kid I probably have ever met in my life. And he reminded me so much of me when I was talking to him. Listening to his voice, it sounded like me just hearing him. And at the end of our conversation, I said, what can I do for you? What do you need from me? And he said almost the same thing, but as the other student, but he said to me, I need you to keep showing me something different. And I said, okay, explain that to me. He said, I do not want to be like my father. And when he said that, yes, see how I was like, I said, I hear you, I see you. And when I told him my story, it was instant connection.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. And just what you said, I hear you, I see you, like probably the most important words you could say. And again, even when someone says like, I love you, like you need to be able to feel that, but I see you, I hear you that's something different.
Yes.
Because we can grow up thinking like we have these people in our life that we expect should love us. And then your dad says, I'm divorcing you. Like, wait a second, as a kid, like, but you're my dad, like you're supposed to love me. And like, how confusing is that? And again, when I think about just this emotional safety and how you truly had to create that on your own, but also to be open to receiving the puzzle pieces along the way that would create that foundation for you. But now you are literally helping lay that for these kids.
And I am convinced that God is I'm just his vessel, that he's making me, he's pointing me, especially over the last 3 years. Things have just been, it's been an amazing ride. And I feel like every week something just groundbreaking happens where I'm just like, somebody has to be up there.
Oh, right.
Looking out for me.
Yeah. I can't even tell you how many times I said, like, I don't feel like I'm in control of this. Like,
exactly,
the healing journey that I have been on and doing all this inner child work and the changes I've had to make to my life. Like, I don't feel like I am in control of this. And then even just starting this podcast, like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing now.
Yep.
Like,
yes.
You should see my setup. I joked to him, like, the least professional. But because I feel like, no, God's like, no, you need to get out there and you need to be sharing these stories and helping people feel seen and heard in them. And so, yeah. But again, if I were to stay stuck and resist those changes and resist, sometimes the difficult transitions you have to go through and put yourself in to keep moving forward, it's hard.
Yes.
But when you know that there's a greater purpose, like, you got to go, you got to do this.
I gave a talk to, are you familiar with the AVID program? Okay. So AVID, AVID, stands for Advancement Via Individual Determination.
Okay.
And they're pretty much at all of our schools in Verona. There's, at the middle schools, the high school, there's a program for these students they're going above and beyond the standard curriculum to advance their learning. And so last year, it was last year, I gave a talk to the students at one of our middle schools. And one of them gave a presentation. And when she was presenting, she was only looking at me the whole time. And there's probably about 8 or 10 of us there. And I said to her afterwards, and she, young Black student, brilliant. Afterwards, I said, why were you only looking at me when you were presenting? She said, because you look like me and you see me. And I was just like, I gave her the biggest hug and was just blown away. Well, what I didn't know was what would happen 2 weeks later. I met one of our school board meetings, and Lori, who's wonderful if you're watching, our school board administrator, she brings over this huge brown envelope. And I was like, what is this? She said, here. And I open it up, and it's letters from all the students of the program telling me what they learned from me speaking to them. And the word that kept coming up in 90% of the letters was perseverance. And I said, they got it. They heard it. They heard it. Because that's my fraternity stands on 4 cardinal principles: manhood, scholarship, perseverance, and uplift. That's me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's me. I have my own definitions of what a man is. A man is upstanding, is someone that the community goes to when they're in need, who isn't afraid to reach out when he needs help.
Right.
Scholarship, education, you have to, and I'm not just saying at school.
Right.
Because a lot of what I learned was from my community.
Yeah.
A lot of the history of who and what I am, I learned from the community, not in any textbooks.
Yeah.
So education looks so many different ways.
Absolutely.
Perseverance, being able to go through and come out on top of whatever challenge is thrown at you.
Well, and that's been a reoccurring phrase on this podcast is, how is this happening for me?
Yes.
Because if you are stuck in the, how is this happening to me, you get stuck there.
Yep.
And you become your own victim in your own story. but you see, how is this happening for me? What is the gift in this? And I have just become relentless at everything. Like a blessing and a curse, because the smallest thing that happened, I'm like, how is this happening for me? What can I learn? What is the lesson in this? But man, like how that has helped me shift out of moments that could keep me stuck, that could keep me isolated or not moving forward. When I think about that, how is this happening for me? Like, I know like everything is a lesson. Everything is a gift. You just got to go find it. And that leads to that perseverance, because then you will continue to find it.
Yes, absolutely. You just said something and I smiled because it's something my grandmother, my mother's mother, used to say to me all the time. And grandma was the toughest, not woman, person on the planet. The governor of Mississippi was at her funeral talking about how tough she was. And my grandmother said to me, Korbey, there are two types of people in this world. People who allow things to happen to them and people like us who make things happen.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. It's so true.
Yes.
Because you have example after example of how you could have let all of that stuff hold you back and really fall into conditioning. And everybody experiences that in every aspect of their life, whether they relate to any aspects of your childhood or not, or even someone like me. Like there's a ton of conditioning around the way I grew up and the thoughts that I have and the behaviors are like, wait a second, is that actually true for me? Is that actually who I am? Or is that just how I grew up and what the thinking was from that time period?
Exactly.
Like I need to get real with who am I and what resonates with me and what do I want to do moving forward? And if that doesn't align, then I got to start thinking different.
Yep. Can I share with you the turning point of my life as a teenager? This is what sent me to college, sent me on that path. In my community, the police are always seen as the adversary.
Yeah.
A police officer turned my life around. And there was an incident when I was about 16 years old. There were some guys walking through the neighborhood, throwing bricks at windows of homes, just busting. So one of them hits the window of the place I'm living in, and I yell out the window, and they yell back. I go out there with a gun, and I open fire. Thank God I didn't hit anybody. And they run off. The police are called, and police officer, I'm going to say his name, Ryan Vento, he comes over and he let me have it. He laid into me so bad. Well, what he did after that was even more instrumental in who I am. He followed me every day to school to make sure I was going. Every day, his squad car would pull up next to me. You going to school? Yeah, I know you're going to school. So yeah, okay. This is how things come full circle. I'm in Wisconsin and I'm at one of the sporting goods stores while I'm in college. I'm just there checking out something. And I saw the guy at the counter with the same last name as the police officer. And I looked at him. He's ringing me up. This is a true story, by the way. This is nothing is made up that I'm telling you. And I said, oh, I knew a police officer with that name. This guy stopped and he looked at me. He said, where? And I told him where. He said, grabs the phone. I said, what are you doing? He said, that's my dad.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, what are you doing here? He was going to school here at Wisconsin also. I never knew he had a son. He never brought him up. He just stayed on me to make sure I would go after. And here's his son working, going to college. And me and his son talked for maybe an hour about how great his dad is.
Wow. Like you can't make this stuff up.
No.
So like, do we need more proof that
There's, yes.
to come in your life in that exact moment and then to continue for some reason, like to see something in you again, to see you like,
yes,
that there's a purpose for that kid. Like, and he probably didn't know it, but he was just appointed to you. Like, I'm gonna need you to go down and I'm gonna need you to get this kid to school.
yes,
Because he's got a big old purpose to live out and he needs someone to protect him. Like, wow.
I couldn't believe it. Every time I tell that story, I'm like,
Yeah.
It really happened.
Wow.
Yes.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And if we get all kind of, looking back in your story, and I'm a big advocate of everyone advocating and validating their story, because I could look at your childhood experience and mine very, 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 very different.
Mhm.
And I think that's where a lot of people get caught up is like, well, I didn't have it nearly as bad as Korbey. And so I would dismiss everything that I have gone through, what my inner child has gone through. I was like, no, that's not what it's about. Is I still need to kind of move through and honor and validate what I went through, but also but everything is the same. It's like you look at your story, my story, anyone else's story, like the process of validating it is the same. The process of seeing yourself in it, the process of like those key players,
Yes.
the people that were put in your life, good or bad,
Mhm.
was all to serve a purpose.
Yes.
And Khaled and I talked about this in the last episode when someone dropped a massive bomb on her about something in her story. Like, yeah, that woman got a rough hand at you're going to be the one to deliver this message, but that needed to happen. And so it's like, you almost kind of see your life as this play and all of these characters who, I mean, you probably should create a movie out of your life. I would go. I don't see, man.
All of these years later, I never knew what my purpose was until 2020. The pandemic did it. It made me, a lot of people look back at it. It was terrible.
Yeah.
It was horrible. And I'll tell you how it was horrible for me, but it redefined and defined my purpose.
Yeah.
In the course of 2 months, I lost 6 people due to COVID. One uncle, one aunt, and childhood friends that I grew up with due to COVID. We couldn't go anywhere, remember, during that time. And it was me in my house with my dog.
Yeah.
And had him since he was 6 months old. He was 14 years old, and then he passes.
Ooh.
And now it's just me by myself with my thoughts. And it was, I always say it's when I went into my cocoon.
Oh yeah, I've talked about the cocoon out here too. I was there.
It was when I went into my cocoon and figured out my purpose, because that's when everything started happening. That's when one of my great friends who Donald Dantzler, he introduced me to the 100 Black Men of Madison. And I became the health and wellness chair because I was setting up different vaccine sites for COVID in the city so that people who didn't have vehicles or means to get to clinics or even had appointment problems. Right. Remember at that time.
Oh my gosh, it was a mess.
Yes. So we brought the clinics to them, the sites to them. And that's where it started. That's where I said, I want to help people who are marginalized in any way, shape, or form to have access, to have the bare necessities to be able to be successful. And so that their kids can also be successful and be proud of them. And that was my purpose. And that is my purpose. And that's where it really started.
Wow.
Rolling now.
So interesting, because when you look back at 2020, and I know that was when I had kind of my open the box, nope, you close it down. And I did. I just dove into work, and I started to find some of my purpose in my work at that time.
Yes.
But I was very much ignoring other aspects of my life at that time. But I think so many people, it was like we were all put in that position, and like, what are you going to make of this?
Yeah.
And I think there was certainly a group of people like us that ended up finding that silver lining, finding something in that. And hopefully everybody did, but I know sometimes life goes back to normal. We fall back into old habits and routines and things. And we kind of miss there was something in that for you.
Yes.
And I think about that in different aspects of my life where I can see what maybe the gift was in that for other people. Like you missed it.
Mm-hmm.
You missed it. Went right back to old coping strategies, right? And that's all the conditioning and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that you bring up this cocoon, because it's a scary thing to be alone in your thoughts, and an ego does not want to be there. And that's why it'll come up with all these other let's just eat, let's just drink, let's do whatever to not deal with our thoughts, not actually look at our stuff, because then ego is not in control anymore. But when you have to go into that cocoon and completely, I've described it as like dissolving yourself into this like pile of mush, because it's like, I've got to get rid of all of these layers and aspects that aren't actually me and the things that aren't actually serving me, so I can figure out who I am, what my purpose is. You can't do that with outside noise.
Yes.
And you wrote a post, I think it was last week or something like that, about like the people in your life that maybe you would expect to support you, or how you got to find this within you, because there's going to be a lot of outside noise and people are going to have their inputs and they're only going to be able to meet you at their level of healing, their level of perception. And that's where that perseverance is like, I've got to push forward regardless of what the people around me think, feel, all that stuff. And so can you speak to that a little bit, and like how you have, because that post, I was like, I feel you. Oh, I feel you.
One of my fraternity brothers, Brother Langston Evans, he says to me all the time, turn off the noise. And that's my reset button. It is hard. It is hard because people view you through their lens and what they think you should be. And then some people view you based on what you used to be.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of who you are now. And those are those instances where you really have to get into yourself and surround yourself with the people who see you for who you are now and want you to succeed. And that's the reset button. The last thing of the cardinal principles that I didn't touch on was the major part, uplift. And that is pulling others with you, making sure we're all okay. And that's what I think I was brought here for. I think, and it's something I tell everybody, I told my wife this, I said, and she thinks I need to see a therapist, which I do. I think we all should. We all should. And she says,
we only go so far.
Yes. She always is like, you need to call the therapist back up, schedule some more appointments, because I say, how can I say this, Tam? I'm just going to say it. I don't think I was necessarily put here for Korbey to be happy. I was put here to make sure everyone else was. And that makes me happy when I'm able, when I see the look on a family's face when I'm at my fraternity's food drive and we're supplying the community with food for Thanksgiving. And I see the look on a family's face that they have the bare necessities to be able to feed their family. That makes me happy. Or when I tap into a kid who thought they couldn't do it. There's one in Verona. This kid is brilliant, but he was on that cusp where somebody was telling him he couldn't. And this kid ended up competing nationally in one of our competitions and won first place.
Wow.
When I see that makes me happy.
Ooh, I have yet to meet your wife, but I already love her. I love her. And I just like, again, when you talk about like what it means to be a man, like the way that you can see just the bond that you two have in your story is so incredible. We can have a whole other episode on that. But the reason that I love what she said is, I mean, she's right. I mean, you knew that she was right.
Yes.
And this is the whole reparenting thing is like, you can, when you're of service to everyone else, but if you forget about the aspect of you, that's self-abandonment. Like,
yes, it is.
It's like where your inner child's like, what about us, Korbey? When do we get to be happy? And all of these things are pouring back into you. But if there's something still, that little bit of, and again, even though, I mean, think of all of the abandonment wounds that you have endured.
Yes.
Throughout your life, just with your dad leaving and friends and family and all of these things. But that self-abandonment one that's real. And I feel that. And I had a huge kind of awakening about that last year when I was, again, not abandoning myself on the surface. Like I was showing up, I'm going to the gym, I'm doing, all my nutrition stuff. But emotionally and even following my intuition, there were definitely moments where I was straight up abandoning what I knew to be true. And that's where I've had to do a ton of, and I still get pulled back. And like into people pleasing, that makes me abandon myself. And I'm just like, stop doing it. It's so conditioned. But you can see like, no, if I'm of service to people,
Mhm.
like that's my purpose. But it can also, so yeah, I think there's a little aspect of that or like, okay, like what is it that like little Korbey still needs to feel
Yes.
truly happy and that no, you deserve to be happy just because you're you.
Mhm. That's what we're figuring out.
Yeah.
And I have an amazing therapist, and she said everything you just said. She said, you've experienced so much trauma, abandonment, death, that you're feeding that by feeding others. And that's wonderful,
Yeah.
but you cannot forget to feed yourself. And I reached a point, I want to say it was earlier this year, where I felt, for the first time in my life, I felt overwhelmed.
Yeah,
And when I talked to the therapist,
Korbey, yo, don't forget about me.
I talked to the therapist, and she said, this is where you have to take
Yeah.
some time for yourself.
Yeah.
And I did that. And it not only rejuvenated me, but I have more energy
Yeah.
to do the things that I do for the public.
Yes.
So
I tell people, like, if you tend to your inner child and just acknowledge them, like, I even have a picture of little Tam Tam over there. Like, I make my shake every morning. Like,
take a look at
like every morning, just to acknowledge her, like, I'm here, I got you. And like, I'm just trying to check in with how I feel throughout the day. Because again, you can be of great service and doing amazing things. But if your inner child feels like left out of that or not
Yes.
acknowledged by you, or you're not checking in with yourself,
Mhm.
yeah, it will absolutely trigger that.
It
Thank
will.
goodness you found that, hey, when I actually do tend to myself, my inner child's like, sweet, let's do this. And now it's like an active part. And
Yes.
it does give you more fuel to do what you're doing. That's why like I love this freaking podcast because I'm bringing little Tam Tam with me every single time.
Yes.
I'm not working and completely forgetting about her. Like she's a part of everything I do.
Mhm.
So that just fuels it. And so that's very cool that once you tapped into that, it's like, whoa, watch all these other things happening. Cause little Korbey's like, yeah, now you made me a part of this. You didn't forget about us.
Exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
oh my goodness. This has been, I thought I knew a lot about your story, but wow. It just, if there was even more respect that I could have for you, you have gained it because
Thank you.
I didn't think that was possible, but
Thank you.
it's,
And I have to say, because statistics do show that men, we don't seek mental health
thank
therapy
you for,
enough, and we have to.
yes.
We have to. There is no shame. It's a must. It's a necessity. And we're all dealing with something.
Everybody.
And if you keep that in, it has to come out some way. And
Right.
a lot of times, unfortunately for men, it's negative because we've been conditioned and taught that to deal with our feelings and emotions for some reason is to be weak. And that's not true at all. A strong man deals with his emotions
Yes.
and is able to. So I have got to say that.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. And I have a friend of mine who's like, when are you going to start working with more men? Like, when are you going to start? And I'm like, I know, because there's a real need. And it's been funny at the gym. A couple people there are like, when are you going to set up a table here? And it's a lot of guys where like now I'm talking about their inner child and they're starting to open up and crack open a little bit to see that, oh, wow.
There's many that because I know you know them.
Yeah.
I know you talk to them who need that because I've talked to them and they've let it their guard down. They've been vulnerable. They won't go super deep, but they've at least cracked the seal open and let me know that they had some things happen in their childhood that they've never addressed.
Yeah. And I think that's where when we were talking about this, like you can give someone a safe space to open up. And that's why like I wanted to share my story and just letting people know, like, I will hold space for you.
Yes.
Like I may not have lived your experience at all, but I can hold space for you and for that little boy. And just, yeah, we need, and if people aren't ready to jump right into therapy, and I understand that because you're going to be like, nope, I don't need it, or that's not going to work for me. Reach out to somebody, or at least start talking about your story. Like find that safe person. And you can tell, like, if you are tapped in, just like that guy noticed you on the track, like something about your energy and your aura, like, yes, like you kind of know who those safe people are in your life that you can start to bring those walls down. And that's exactly what everyone's inner child needs. Like, you just need to validate the story and then you can start to work through it. But if you keep denying that and suppressing it, you're right. It's eventually that boiling pot that's gonna go over.
And if you notice, because I've noticed it big time, kids, they are really tapping in to the need for mental health. They are requesting it.
Yes.
The kids are recognizing the need for mental health and their well-being.
Yeah.
So we as adults have to acknowledge that and address our own issues as well.
So like heal so your kids don't have to, or like the whole projection stuff. It's like we don't even understand like how much of our own stuff we're putting on it. So thank goodness our kids are getting our attention. But yeah, I was actually looking back last night at all the podcast episodes, and the least viewed one was heal so your kids don't have to. And I was like, ooh, we're not so ready to look at our own stuff yet.
No, that mirror is a tough. Yes.
Do it. And that's like where like, if you can't do it for yourself yet, like do it for your kids. Start there. And that was a huge thing for me with my daughter, you know, just like, because for me, it started with body image stuff and my relationship with food. And obviously it's gone into the depths of healing, but I was like, I'll be damned if I am going to create this unhealthy relationship with her body and food because of me, because of the way she sees me. And that was a huge turning point. And then again, it's led into more and more, but it's had to start with her.
Yes.
And again, my inner child, like, why weren't we good enough to do that? I'm like, well, and that's part of where it's like, no, I am worthy. But for a long time, it was for her. But eventually, same with you, it was like, I had to realize I was worthy of doing these things for myself too. So sometimes it has to start there, but let it evolve to where you're now.
You just made me think of a meeting I had that just blew me away. I had a meeting with a bunch of middle school kids, and I simply asked the question, what do you think of your school lunch? Because we were trying to figure out ways to make it healthier. It was amazing.
Ooh.
And I'm sitting there like, these kids are health and food conscious. One of them said to me, we want to see more green leafy. I'm like, these are middle school kids. These are and all we have to do is listen, see them.
Yes, see them. And even when I ask Aria for her input, just the way that she lights up that, hey, what I say matters.
Yes.
What I have to say is important. And so, yeah, just to ask them their thoughts and opinions and input, that's huge for a kid. Because again, you are helping them feel seen and heard, which is her child 101. And if we can all help people throughout our lives truly feel seen.
Yes.
And I think about, you know, our gym community, and people have commented about this community that we created. I'm like, that's literally it, is just helping people feel seen and acknowledging them in the morning. Because so many people are going about their day. And I notice that when I'm walking by people, like if they're not making eye contact, like I find that so, I used to like, gosh, that's rude. But I know it's something so much deeper than that now, but it really is literally that, is just helping people feel seen. And it can be the simplest thing.
Yes. I have to make a comment about our gym community. This past weekend, the governor of Maryland was here, Governor Westmore, and one of our gym community friends was on a panel with him, Dr. Alvin Thomas. And the question was, someone made a comment, or the question was, we have to have more spaces than just the clinic that they were speaking from for Black men to have spaces for health. And Dr. Thomas said, at 5 a.m., Korbey has us all at the gym together, and it's a tough workout. It's grueling. We leave there dragging each other out.
Treat yourself.
Yes.
All of your body. Yes.
But when he spoke to with that, Dr. Thomas said, but we talk about marriage, politics, religion, race, everything. So we're getting the mental therapy and stimulation that we need. And you've seen the group grow. It was just me and Steve. Now it's 9 of us.
Yeah.
You know, and now more people are contacting us wanting to come from McFarland all the way here because they want to be part of the group. And because it's a point of upliftment. Governor Westmore grabbed me, and people were like, what did he say to you? He hugged me, held me there. And he said, Korbey, keep doing what you're doing. Keep providing these spaces. What you're doing is providing a service, and it's genuine. It's organic. Keep doing that. And that meant everything to me.
Well, yeah, I have in the last 3 years witnessed just it's the coolest thing what you guys do because you can tell it's so much more than a workout. It's
Yes.
community, it's brotherhood, it's all of those things. Like it's so much more than a workout, and that's where I wish people could like just get there and
That's the
open
hard
yourself
part.
up. Yeah, just get there because then if you open yourself up, you can find that there. You can create that. I went in there not wanting to be there. I cried straight up going into the gym that first day. Like I did not want to be there because it's not going to have community. I mean, I was dead. That was the story. I told myself that story and I hung on to it. And then I remember my second day, someone introduced me to someone and I was like I kind of felt
Yes.
maybe this is going to be okay. And then I meet you guys and it's just become this thing, but it was, you have to open yourself up and you may have to put yourself in those situations, but you'll find people like you
Yes.
that can welcome you in and help build this amazing community. Cause you're right. Like that's where it comes from. And what do you think?
You did one of the most, it may sound small, but it was amazing and needed during COVID. Everyone's birthday you celebrated. People needed that. We needed that during a pandemic. Everybody wanted some normalcy, wanted to feel celebrated in a time where everything felt doom and gloom. So we can't thank you enough for coming with the party hats, different costumes, having us all sign the card and billboard. We looked forward to it. What's Tammy going to be in today? Is she going to be dressed as Spider-Woman or?
One of our buddies said that. He's like, are you going to come as Dr. Phil this Halloween? I'm like, yes, I am. That is happening. No more Wonder Woman, straight up Dr. Phil. Become the gym therapist, but I love that because everyone is working through something. And
Yes.
But I think we also need to realize that at some point you do have to kind of take that beyond the gym. You know, there's only so much you can get from that, whether that's community, but you're right. Like that's where maybe going to the next step of, I really do need to talk through this.
Oh, and to your point, our gym brotherhood has done just that. We have one of the guys who works out is the pastor of Mount Zion, Pastor Allen. We do events together with the church. We've done a food drive through the church with my fraternity and him. We have some things coming up where he's addressing mental health. Dr. Thomas is working with us. We're addressing mental health on panels, and JP Hair Design with the vaccine. We all use what we have to serve the community to make it better.
Again, like looking at your childhood, you literally had to do that. Like I got to pile together my resources and let's get like, it's so cool how all of that is now playing and really become strengths. Really empowering strengths. And yeah, it's amazing but you guys, you would never know that any of you, you're all just, like I said, I was calling him a dude the other day. The most welcoming personalities and energy that I could go up to any of you. And that's, I think what makes it so special and unique, that it's not like, oh, look at me and all of my achievements and things. Like, it's not like that at all.
No. And Dr. Thomas, who, by the way, is a 10-year professor at UW in family psychology, he always says it. He said, don't let what we do define who we are. You know, we're still Korbey and Alvarez and Marcus and Jeff and, Joe.
I love that.
We're still that, but what we do, we use to impact the community in a positive manner. But we're not defined by a title.
Yeah, I feel like that comes back to what your wife said and what the work that you have done to like, who is Korbey and how do I still honor Korbey?
Yes.
Although I'm still doing all these amazing things. Like, I love that. Oh, this has been amazing. Before we wrap up, like talk a little bit about your like latest venture. Yeah.
So see Here Learn LLC. So what I do is I teach businesses how to create employee resource groups. And this came about because the executive order Governor Evers issued back in 2020 said that every state agency had to have a staff networking group centered on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what we found while doing that is there was a lot of trauma going on at the time. I mean, we had Breonna Taylor, we had George Floyd, we had Jacob Blake. So employees at a lot of these places were feeling a low sense of acknowledgement, morale. And so our agency started the staff networking group centered on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the survey results after 6 meetings were through the roof. People were saying they felt seen, acknowledged, heard. That seems to be the thing, right? And so another agency of the state contacted me and asked, how did you guys do that? So I showed them what we did there. Well, then I started speaking globally
Yeah.
about employee resource groups. And they were like, how do we do that? How do we, because Forbes says businesses who foster a sense of belonging are 35% more productive, more successful. And so every business wants that, but you have to do it organically.
Yeah.
You can't say employees, you need to show up to this group. It's a requirement. It's not going to get engaged.
Think about that.
Nothing authentic. You have to do it organically, make it voluntary, make it welcoming.
Yeah.
And so that's what I do.
I love that.
And so far, one of the comments from one group member just stuck with me from 2 months ago, who identifies as a member of the LGBTQ community, said to me, I need this. I need this. I absolutely need this.
Wow.
Because they didn't feel seen, acknowledged, heard, or valued. And this was that safe space where they got to be them.
Yes.
Without judgment.
Well, and again, going back to inner child stuff, like what kid doesn't want to be included and fit in?
Yes.
But how can we do that in a way where they don't have to change who they are in order to do that?
Yes.
And that's where it's like, no, I can be seen for exactly who I am and still feel included. I don't have to change who I am to feel included. And you're providing that, which is, again, how do you do that? Because people are still trying to figure that out. And so, again, that's why I've just always like loved and respect you so much and how you're able to do that for people. And now you're putting it out into the world, because that is literally how we're going to help heal this world. And the trauma isn't magically going to go away, but how can we help people move through it and find the purpose in it? Because that's exactly what you've done, is taken so much pain and seeing other people in their pain, saying there's a purpose, like hang in there, persevere. You will find the purpose in this.
You sound almost exactly what I tell kids who are going through it. And then I tell them my story and they're like, oh, I can do it. I can. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. But trust me, at the end of it, you're going to find the better you. You're going to do things that you didn't know you could do.
Look back, if none of those things would have happened, who's to say you'd be doing what you're doing now? So it's like, man, I actually needed all that to happen. Like and I think about that too, on a much smaller scale, all of the failed diet attempts that I did, like every time I would, completely botch something and lose and regain weight. And I remember that moment of, oh, like I was supposed to learn something from this, not only what works, but also very much what doesn't work. And I could start to see all of these different experiences as literally the puzzle pieces to get me to the work that I'm doing today. Like it was never about the food. Like, oh, I wish I could have learned that so much sooner, but like I needed to go through that journey to figure it out.
Yes. Much bigger cause, bigger exploration.
Yeah.
There's forces beyond us working to get us to our purpose. And once you find it, you wake up every morning just feeling joy. I know I do. I know it's going to be a lot of work that day, but I do it for the people who I impact and not for me.
Well, what I love about your story too, and I think maybe this is what sets it apart so much, is that for someone who didn't have like really any foundation of safety, most people's ego would say, I need to control everything I possibly can. And you surrendered. Like you did the opposite. And that's what you need to do, is at a really early age, like you surrendered and followed the path, even though that path took you to different places that like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have been here, but I learned some things, and I think that's what I have really had to learn over these last 2 years is I have to surrender to this and then it's interesting how it all starts to unfold. But sometimes we try to control our futures and our things so much when really it's like, if I trust that we are all being guided and your story is proof of that and why I knew like this has to be on the podcast, is to help inspire people or trust that like this can happen for you too if you surrender.
Tammy, there's a song, I'm going to send it to you. I used to cry when I would listen to it by DJ Khaled called I Surrender. And it talks about just that. Yes. That you, at some point, you have to let him take the wheel. Let go, let God deal with it, and trust the process. Trust that you're going to end up where you're supposed to be, and it's going to be okay.
It's funny as you did that, because I was literally going to say, like, when we control, your hands are like this.
Yes.
And I was going to say, you can't receive the gifts, the blessing, the purpose if your hands are like this. And so when you were, I'm like, oh, he's already. Oh, but yeah, I think I would love, and I will put that link so people can listen to that from this episode. So wrapping up, because I mean, I know you've got like, again, he's got meetings and really, really, really important things to be doing. But how can people find you, follow you, tap into this?
Yes.
Magic?
seehearlearn.co.
.co.
Yep. Go to the website. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, just under my name, Korbey White. Also, See Hear Learn. We have Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm there as well. And yeah, if you want to follow me, please do. At least I say one time a day, somebody will inbox me saying, thank you, I needed that.
Yes.
Because I try to put posts out that are relative to what I think a lot of us are dealing with. But nobody wants to say anything.
Right.
Nobody wants to be that person to put it out there.
Yep. And that's literally been, I know I have people in my life like, how are you so open? Or like, would never think to do that. I'm like, again, it just feels like this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm like, I'm supposed to be giving a voice to people's inner child. And you're giving a voice to people like in a different way. Really, it's all comes down to that.
It does.
But yeah,
it really does.
Someone to speak up and to say these things and to get people thinking, because it's like, wait a second, let's not all just follow along here. Like when you can kind of disrupt that and be like, let's pause, let's think about this. Is this really true for us?
I had a guy who used to work out at the gym years and years and years ago. When I would make those posts, he was the only critic. He said to me, crying on Facebook again. It turns out he was dealing with all of this stuff that he never let out. And I got him to do that. I'm like, dude, you need to let that out.
Again, that's a classic projection. And that's why I eventually, that was so freeing when I realized that, because it's like, now I don't worry about when people criticize podcast or things that I write, because I know it's like, if that's a them thing and they might not be able to see that yet, because again, that mirror is like, nope.
Yep.
But I can find peace in knowing that, and just know like I got to keep.
And look to the people who provide you that positive feedback, because you'll find they far outweigh the people who are saying anything negative. Yeah,
I actually had written a post recently, and I was kind of talking about shame, and the reason I didn't share it was because I was so, I was projecting my own fear of judgment onto everyone else, and I just addressed it. And someone had commented like, why would you give so much merit to those few people and deny the rest of us who do find you an inspiration?
Yes.
That gift.
Yes.
Isn't that what we always do? You find that one negative comment and you focus on that versus the 100, like
guilty.
Yeah. I mean, that's ego, classic ego, being like, well, gotcha. I'll bring you right back. But yeah, I mean, it takes constant effort to be like, continue on that path regardless. And know that those are our little tests along the way. Like, do you believe in what you're doing?
Bingo.
Yeah.
You hit it.
Oh, all right. I will let you go.
Okay.
Thank you for this.
No problem. No problem. Anytime.
Yeah. Well, I will take you up on that. Be like, damn, I didn't really mean that. Oh, but honestly, like, anything that I can ever help out with and volunteer, like, call me up, because I love what you're doing and I love the impact that you're making. And so I can ever be a part of that in any way.
Thank you. I will take you up on that.
All right.
I know you can lift a lot.
So I can carry all my groceries in one trip, or like, I want to be the strong friend. So if I can help, that's what I want to do. So, but thank you so much. And I know.
Thank you for having me.
Is going to, it already has, but just even with people that are listening, to be able to inspire so many other people to find the purpose in their pain, because everyone has some level of pain that they're living through.
Yes.
And if you can allow yourself to feel it and process it, the purpose is there. The
Mhm.
gift is there. And I think that's what God is trying to tell all of us is like, I gave you this for a reason. I know it's hard, but stop making it harder.
What's the phrase? He doesn't give us anything we can't handle.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But you gotta persevere to find it, right?
Mhm.
Excellent. On that note, little thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if anything in this episode resonated with you, let us know, like, comment, all the things. Please send this dude, the dude, all of the love and support for what he's doing. And in any way, get involved in your efforts. Yeah, the world needs more people like this. So
Thank
I am truly blessed to know you and
As I am.
to call you a friend. And truly, like I said, it just you feel like the older brother I never had. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. We will sign off. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank
today.
you.
We'll be back next week.